I can't take any credit. It's all God, because, I mean, all those hurdles, I didn't have the money. People gave. A lot of it was already like donated, right? In-kind gifts, like the hotel. That was just amazing gift. And people, when I went out, and I'm not a fundraiser, but I had to fundraise for, the food, the parking, all that, the Pahana party to throw that, after you're done, all that funds came in, and I was just blown away. And the quality of the recording is so good because the readers are so good. They are well-known voices in the community. And I'm blown away. Can I even just name some of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back to Hawaii Real, everybody. I'm your host, Ioke Ehu, and this is the 100th episode of Hawaii Real. I'm so glad. Thank you, audience, so much for supporting me through these 2 years now. 2 years, every week, almost every week. Try to get it on, but it's been a long process, and you can go back and look through all of my old videos and see the transformation of going from something really small and really small production-wise, from one camera and 2 mics, to the whole studio setup that I have here today. And it's just been a constant improvement that I've been trying to do. And I just want to say mahalo to everybody out there for continuing to watch and support this channel. And I want to send a shout out to beverage host Hawaiian Springs Water. Thank you so much for providing this alkaline water for the episode. You can find Hawaiian Springs Water in the Amazon link in the description below. I always put it there. You can buy it directly on Amazon, or you can buy it from 7-Eleven, whatever you guys want. But it's great tasting water. It's bottled in the Big Island, straight from the aquifer. Awesome stuff. Okay, and I have an awesome guest for my awesome 100th episode today. Brought up Earl Morihara.
How's it?
Thank you so much for coming on. And Earl is the lead translator for the Hawaii Pigeon Bible. And you'll be found at hawaiipigeonbible.org. But further than that, you're also the connections pastor for the New Hope Church Central Oahu. Thank you so much for coming on Hawaii Real. I know it was kind of short notice when I got a hold of you. We actually connected with your wife first, Gail.
That's right.
And she was like, no, I don't want to come on. You should have my husband on. Gail's over here laughing.
Bait and switch, right? Yeah.
Bait and switch. But it worked out. Thank you so much.
It's good. My pleasure to be here, Ioane.
All right. And we're going to dive into the pigeon and everything that we got here in Hawaii.
Yep.
And for my mainland audience, pigeon, actually, why don't you go ahead and describe, just like for the mainland audience, what is pigeon?
Okay. Well, Pigeon, some people would say, is a dialect. Some people would say it's a language because it was identified as a language in the legislature. This is a language. And even the what you'd call pigeon here is something that is not really something that everyone agrees upon, because what do you call it? Is it Hawaii Pidgin English? Is it Hawaiian Pidgin? Is it broken English? What is it, right? So it's even called at the University of Hawaii Creole English.
Oh, that doesn't...
I know.
Just stick with pigeon.
Yeah, well, it's so... throughout the years, we've come to now say it's Hawaii because it's where it is. It's not Hawaiian, but it's Hawaii Pidgin. Not Pigeon, you can say English, but it's Hawaii Pidgin. So that's what we call it now and identify it as such. So anyway.
Okay, good. But yeah, I guess you can liken it to Cajun English in, Louisiana or some southern places. I guess Boston, some South Boston accents and stuff like that, really heavy dialect that, if you speak regular English, sometimes you don't necessarily understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, and Creole is a linguistic term, and I think people relate it to like the Louisiana Creole, and they think the cuisine, right? Creole, the cuisine. So we can talk about that, in our time together, about the linguistic idea of a Creole, which Hawaii Pidgin is.
Have you ever been in New Orleans?
No, I haven't.
That's on my bucket list. I haven't been there either. I used to be a Saints fan when I was in high school, but for other reasons. I don't know why I was a Saints fan. No, I do. It was black and gold. I just love black and gold. Okay, so start off here. As a professional, What was your favorite or most impactful memory, whether it be from doing translation or being a pastor at church?
Okay, I would say, well, I thought long and hard on that, and I think for me, professionally, being a part of seeing the Hawaii Pidgin language translated into the entire Bible, I would say is my top professional accomplishment, if you would say, being a part of that, because it wasn't just myself. There were others that were involved.
And it took decades.
Yes, decades, literally decades.
That's insane and awesome. I like hearing stories like that. It's like, wow, you did this project for, just continually for year after year after year after year. That has to be one of your passions.
Yes. And, I don't want to take all the credit, because it was in 1986 that as somebody that was coming out of the University of Hawaii, I met this visiting professors in linguistics. Why? Because I was the most local guy in that Christian group. So the leader said, hey, go talk. They were looking for to talk story with some locals about this phenomenon of like this pigeon, whatever that was happening in Hawaii. And so I was the token local, I guess, most local guy, and I met this couple from Wycliffe Bible translators. They were here just as visiting professors. So I met them, and they were talking to me about what they did and everything else. The wife was an editor of this document called the Ethnologue. And the Ethnologue is a document that tracks all known languages, not only for translation purposes, but for State Department purposes, because they want to know if, a people group can understand another people group, how closely are the language related, how many people speak those languages. That's an important document for, State Department purposes, governmental purposes. So anyway, she, as the editor, she was kind of keen on what's happening in Hawaii. We have this, this write-up on that. And so anyway, that's the start of what started to where we started translating certain pieces of the Bible, and it was speaking to me. And as it was speaking to me, they said, wow, there's something here. So they went back to the mainland as visiting professors to Ithaca, New York. Oh. Cornell. And they felt God calling them to come back to Hawaii to actually focus on the translation. So, they uproot and move, get located in Makaha, of all places. And, in 1987, 88, that's when the translating officially started, where they recruited all these local people to help with the translation. And that's where, I could say that I was a part of the initial stages.
Were they still involved with the project all the way till its fulfillment?
Well, just think about it. They were in their 50s then. So
in the 80s. Yeah.
80s. So now the couple, the wife passed away in 2014. So they moved to the mainland. She had a stroke. They moved back to the mainland, and she eventually passed away. He was he's still living at 93 years old. So he got to be involved to see the project through to the print version all the way till the end.
That's so awesome. When did the print version come out?
So the Jesus book, that's a New Testament part of the Bible, right? And it's really a third of the entire Bible, right? 66% is the Old Testament. So the New Testament came out in 2000, year 2000. So, it took that initial 2000, and then 20 years later is when the entire Bible, the before Jesus book, right? The before Jesus book, to get the Jesus book and the Old Testament came together. And I was involved initially. Then, I went away to Japan and came back, and the translation work was ongoing. I was not a pastor at that point. I was not as free as that time, but I still was involved. But when I became a pastor in 2001, that's when I had more time to focus on the translation with the teams of people that were doing it, along with that couple. Joe, I want to give credit to Joe and Barbara Grimes as the guys who were called with they knew Greek, they knew Hebrew. And that was important because it wasn't a translation that we translated from English. It was the translation that was translated from the original language.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. So I thought it was translating from English into Pidgin English or Hawaiian Pidgin, but it's not. It's translating from the original scripture in Hebrew.
Yeah, and just some background information. Most translations in the world, when people translate them, you're working with a translator that maybe has background in Greek, because that's the New Testament. And there are a lot of translations that go on, and it takes years. They complete the New Testament, and it's another team of people that come and if they choose to do the Old Testament, which is 66% more. So this couple, felt led to continue, because they could have stopped in 2000 and said, our work is done, but they felt led to, let's continue to do the Old Testament. So the husband and the wife, they know Hebrew, which is amazing. And so they felt, okay, we're going to stick it through. And so to have a complete Bible in Hawaii Pidgin is amazing. There are many, again, translations around the world, but there are not many complete Bibles like this. So you talk about the top professional accomplishment, or what I've been involved in. This is
it. Yeah, that's a huge one. Most people go their whole lives and don't come near close to accomplishing something that big. It's awesome. It makes me feel really proud. But let's get it going on to you. What high school you grad from?
That's why he's like, how does this guy get the credentials?
It's Hawaii. What high school you in?
So I grew up in I would say one of the most plantation communities on Oahu. It's Waipahu. So I grew up in Waipahu, born and raised there, fourth generation Japanese American. And when I was growing up, all the people in my neighborhood spoke Pidgin. My parents spoke Pidgin, and my grandparents all spoke Pidgin. And so you try to speak, proper English, right, in school, but everyone's speaking, Pidgin. So, but that's the culture or the community I grew up in the plantation community of Waipahu.
So I guess that's why you have like a really deep sense of Pidgin, because that Waipahu, the Japanese immigrant, especially from the plantations, that's where it came from and it was derived from, right?
Correct. Right. So you talk about the genesis or how this Pidgin came about, and that's where the idea of Creole, right? Creole, it's like that's a linguistic term to mean the second generation that adopts the language as their first language. So the immigrants, the first generation guys came, they had to communicate. Well, what language are they going to communicate in? Well, some of their own first language, but because they were coming to the plantation where the landowners are English speakers, and they had to kind of relate to the owners, the lunas, right, the managers, and they had to come up with this makeshift language. That was linguistically, that's called a Pidgin. So the first generation guys are speaking their first language, whatever it's Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Korean, right? But they're speaking this makeshift Pidgin language. Okay, well, they get kids. The kids now, what do they learn as their first language? This Pidgin. Well, that's what we call, the linguistic department identified that as Hawaii Creole English. And so Creoles happen all around the world. There are many plantation Pidgins like this around the world, whether it's sugar plantations or, other kinds of plantations, tobacco plantations. Yeah. Cajun is one of them, where a Pidgin is a language, right? So anyway, growing up there, people spoke the Creole. My grandparents especially, they were second generation. So you get to see that I'm speaking to them in their first language, which is Pidgin.
All right. So can I ask you to transfer into Pidgin for the next few questions?
Go for it.
All right. Let's go.
I feel comfortable.
I can't speak for Pidgin because I didn't. Yeah,
even if you grew up, you went to school, Kamehameha, right? Yeah.
We weren't really allowed to speak Pidgin over there much, really. But anyways, okay. What's your favorite beach and what's your favorite outdoor activity?
Okay, you talk about beach. I'm a water boy. I like all beaches because I'm a diver. Actually, I'm a free diver. I love free diving. But in COVID, I got into a new hobby. It's kayak fishing. So I take my kayak and I go out, and it's offshore, and I take it and we go for the kind of deep sea fish like that, like pelagics like that. So anyway, so it's not a favorite beach, a favorite location maybe, like the west side, east side, south side, maybe, yeah.
Aren't you afraid of sharks?
I can talk to you about my shock encounters, but as I think the draw of it is the adrenaline rush when you're fighting a fish, and then sometimes that's the kind, the tax collector guy, the shark come by, right? So anyway, but yeah,
So you guys call him the tax collector?
yeah, because he collect his taxes. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we fighting fish and he collects that he takes the fish, right?
Shark's right there. He's like, no, you guys
Yeah.
catching stuff in my waters. I want some.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Shave ice or ice cream?
Ice cream.
What flavor?
Ooh. Side note, I make my ice cream. We have good friends that they run Black Sheep ice cream. You know Black Sheep?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
Where's that from?
If you look at any of the ratings of local ratings, what is the top local ice cream maker? I think now it's Black Sheep ice cream. But anyway, that's our good friends. So they were making ice cream. I said, hey, I like to do that too. And he said, you can. And I said, shoots, I'm gonna make my own ice cream. So it's just vanilla, and I make my own, but it's homemade kind of stuff.
No, homemade ice cream's the best.
I think so.
I love ice cream.
I cannot buy outside anymore.
It's just I can still buy the big gallon of Meadow Gold
Yeah.
ice cream because that's still good and it's like huge. But man, there's nothing. So Nalo Snow,
Yes.
that was really good ice cream over there in Waimanalo.
Okay.
Really, really good. Loved it.
Hmm.
Okay, do you have a favorite movie that you've watched over and over again
Okay.
that you'd like to share?
Yeah, favorite movie. I like Dances with Wolves.
Oh,
Why?
okay.
Right?
Tatonka.
Yeah, Tatanka. And why? Not because I like Kevin Costner, because I like what he did. He went into that culture. He wanted to get to know about that tribe, that Indians, and he was like chastised, right? They said, get out of here, right? But he was eventually welcomed in. He learned their language, and he married, of course, the holy girl. But you know what I mean? But the fact that he was in there, he was accepted. I don't know. That just speaks to me, and that was a movie, and that's a movie that I like to watch over and over, just for that reason.
Yeah, and there's guys, if you haven't seen Dances with Wolves, what are you doing with your life? Like, definitely go see Dances with Wolves. It's an American classic. It's a roller coaster of emotions. Just from the very first scene when
Yes.
he's getting shot at and he gets on his horse and
Yes.
charges the other line and almost tries to commit suicide. Is that what he's trying to do? And doesn't get hit at all.
Exactly.
Like, wow.
Wow. That's it. Yep. Yeah. Good movie. But
Yeah.
again, it's the language part that gets me, right?
Yes, all those scenes where he's trying to communicate initially with the Plains Indians
Yes.
and bringing them in.
Yeah.
That's a really great scene. I like when he's making the coffee for them and he's like taking the sugar and like throwing the sugar
Exactly.
inside and the guy's like, "What are you doing in my cup?"
Exactly. Well, great, Yohane, that you recall the scenes that clearly.
Oh, I love that movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And hence why I'm so passionate about this whole project, right? Just the idea of having a language that can communicate to the people that I think need to hear it, is the local people in their language. Yes, standard English is a language. We function all in standard English, but to have it where you can identify that this is my language. I can hear the message clearly because it's, you know what I mean? It's speaking clearly, directly. It's not like going through this filter of your
Right.
brain. And yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, definitely. Okay. How many slippers do you own?
how many plenty? I own plenty slippers.
Plenty.
Plenty.
It's plenty is like several.
Yeah,
There's no
choke.
actual
You
number.
choke plenty, but yeah, I own plenty slippers. Get the front ones in the front door and the back side, get plenty, and broke plenty, so you gotta get extra.
Yeah, I guess if you own a house, you have to have front door slippers and back door slippers.
That's right.
Because you're not wearing slippers to the house.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Because I always had this thing. It's like, guys, you got to have 3 pairs of slippers. One for, the beach. One for just going around, your regular slippers. And then one nice, your
pair,
olukais, right?
Yeah.
For going out.
or the reef
to dinner.
ones, the reef ones.
Or the reef, yeah. Something a little more expensive on the fancy side,
yeah, exactly,
Just a little fancy. When you wear jeans, like what slippers are you going to wear when you wear your jeans?
exactly,
That's going out for us.
exactly.
On a professional side, if you could immediately learn one new skill right away, what would it be?
I don't know if it's one new skill, but it's this whole technology. We're getting into this. Everything is digital. Everything is a video. So if I could learn to become better at, communicating through these social media platforms with video and just the whole engineering part, like what you're doing, Ioane, I would love to be that person.
Me too. I would love to be that person. I'm still learning.
Yes.
There's so much, and there's so much that's constantly changing with all these new apps,
That's right.
and new venues and stuff like that.
Yes. So you asked me that. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to have that also. Okay. If there's a historical figure that you would like to have lunch with, who would that be?
And because I've come to know Jesus, the historical figure, but I believe he's a living figure as well, not like walking on the earth right now. But if I could meet him face to face, and we believe that we'll eventually meet him up one day, after we make, right? But I would love to,
But you're talking about like in person,
Yes.
not when we're dead, not the soul or spirit of Jesus, but actual person.
Of course, right? When you the Jesus in the flesh, right? So
What age range would you like to have met him?
I think as he was reported in the Bible when he was about 30, right? As one of the followers, I would love to like be a fly on the wall or be there with the guys that he led, these 12 boys, right?
I would have liked to see him when he was a kid making trouble.
Yeah. He did some stuff that yeah.
Okay. Do you have a life philosophy?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that question. You asked me, and to think about. It's like life philosophy. If I would say that, it would be to be the best follower of Jesus, and not only to follow him, to be like him, and to do what he's called us to do. And that, so if I cannot say it in one word, but it would be the great follower of Jesus.
So what has he called you to do?
Follow him. And to let other people know about him. And, we tell them, for other people, we tell them in Pigeon, for people come, trust Christ and come solid in him. Yeah, come solid, yeah.
Come solid in him.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because you don't even have to know Pigeon to know what that means. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, here's a cool question. So why do you believe that what you do resonates and speaks to people in a more meaningful way?
Okay. With seeing the process of translating the Bible into Hawaii Pidgin, we've had, many chances to have people who are totally local. They grow up, in a local way. They function in a local way. They maybe understand standard English because you live in Hawaii. You live in America. You're not like living in a bubble, right? But they cannot, function well if you had to have them speak in standard English.
Mm-hmm.
So when they hear the Bible, when they hear the message in a language that can speak directly to them, and they respond, to me, that's like, I payday. That's like perfect. And I know that because I've seen people, I've heard stories of people using it. I've heard people who responded to the message. And Pigeon is all around, but there's nothing that's, they're just comedic versions of stuff that's written, but there's nothing like written in Pigeon that people can read. Like story, short story, fictional stuff, but something like the Bible, where it's so deep in meaning, but it can be communicated because they can read in standard English, but it doesn't really strike that chord. When you hear somebody get a message and it cuts deeply, then I know that makes a difference in people's lives.
I always like to use analogies, and one of my analogies I think applies here is going through high school English class, and you were an English teacher,
Yes.
right? And having to do Shakespeare.
Yes.
I didn't understand it. It was not the English that we speak today. And we would have to translate it into modern English in order to really understand what they were saying.
Right.
But then after you translate it, into normal English and put it into normal English, okay, now you can start to understand the emotions, the feelings, all the things going on behind the scenes in, Romeo and Juliet.
Yes. So exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And, there have been some local productions that have translated some Pigeon plays into Pigeon, and they have performed it, like the 12th Night or whatever, and it's not only hilarious, but it speaks, and it's almost like that because for many people they feel like the King James Bible, right, which is Shakespeare's language, right, is the language that you should understand the message of the Bible in.
And you can't always.
Yeah, you can't. It doesn't, right. And it sounds like, well, it's maybe like nice, right? But that wasn't the reason why the Bible was written in the first place, right? It was meant to communicate the message.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so when it does cut, when it cuts to the heart, I mean, to me, yes, right.
So I'm going to ask you, since you're an English teacher and in linguistics, why are they teaching Romeo and Juliet or any kind of Shakespeare in grade school?
Right. That's good. That's a good question, right? Yeah.
Off topic, but yeah.
It's a classic, right? It's a classic. Shakespeare's, amazing plays that he's written, right? Comics, right? And then, right, his histories and all that. Great plays. So, I think they want to preserve the essence of the play in the original language. But again, I think it's best if you translate it into the language that people can understand, but you lose some, right? Whenever you do translation, you lose some of the nuances of the original intent, Although in Bible translation work, you want to keep the original intent, right?
Which is why it takes so long
yes.
to do the proper translation, because you're not just translating it word for word. You're trying to translate the ideas and the emotions behind. Exactly,
you want it, yes. So that took a lot of time and effort because maybe there's in any language there are many ways to convey an idea, right? And so but there are ways that maybe you can convey something that is like, oh, that's perfect, and so that's what happened through this effort in translating the Bible. And just a side note on that, the Jesus book, when the New Testament came out in the year 2000, so 20 years later is when the Good and Special book came out, right? And so the complete Bible. But through the process of translating the Old Testament, right, the before Jesus book, we learned so much more about what was translated in the Jesus book. So it's revised. So the Jesus book from 2020 is now revised in the Good and Special book today, because we've learned a lot from that time that we're doing the initial translation. So, but yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be another revision later when we go, probably can say it a little better, or we've gotten feedback,
Is it because the current language has changed and adapted?
Yeah, that's a good point. Linguistically, there is a term called decreolization. What is that? Decreolization, right? So the idea of the original Creole, the original plantation Creole that happened. You're talking about in the 1900s, right? All the way now. There's been an evolution. There's language shift or language change happens all the time. So, so we have to consider that. And some people say, yeah, but there's Big Island Pigeon, Kauai Pigeon, Maui. Yeah,
right.
we have that kind of varieties. But in essence, the Hawaii Pigeon, if you hear it, yes, like certain maybe words, right, phrases, we call lexical items, may be different in certain places, but they call them the prosody, the sound of how it sounds, it remains pretty much the same. So, but there is shift, and we have to be aware of that, shift. But I think for now, I don't foresee a revision to change what's written here for maybe the next generation or two.
Oh, that's good. That's good. One question. I had heard from someone else that Pigeon sounds the way it does, or the word structure is the way it does, because it's coming from people who spoke Asiatic languages and they're trying to speak English. That's why their word association is sometimes sentence grammar. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's not like the English, like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
In other words, if I can maybe rephrase your question, you're asking about how the way Pidgin sounds is closer to the Asian languages.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the
and even the word structure of where you put the words in the sentence.
Yeah. Well, the English is a Romance language, right? And then you have you have Hawaiian, which is like a Polynesian, right, language, and then you have it's a phenomenon when you have the immigrants that have come, right? So you put that all together, and you come up with this makeshift pidgin, right? Like I mentioned earlier. And how it's formed and how it sounds, it's something that you cannot necessarily pinpoint the evolution of why it came to be how it came to be. You can say it sounds like Hawaiian, but it's not Hawaiian. It sounds like Japanese, but it's not really Japanese. It's its own creation.
Yeah, it's so mishmash because you have so many different ethnicities and immigrants coming in from different languages and putting it all into one.
Yes, and obviously English is the main influence because the people who were in power were the English, right? I mean the English speaking people, not the English from England, but the English speaking landowners. So there had to be English involved, right? So it's amazing when you study languages and what you learn.
All right, so not only was the Bible written in Hawaii Pidgin, which took decades.
Yeah.
But recently you guys have actually put it into an audiobook, and you wanted to describe it as a dynamic audiobook.
Yes. So, I realized after the completion of the translation, that was great. I mean, amazing phenomenon, right? I mean, feat. Over all these years, we finally have the whole print Bible done. And then, now in the digital age, it is digitalized. It is on. You can go on Bible apps and you can find the translation on digital platforms. YouVersion is a famous one. Bible Gateway is carrying it. Bible.is is the organization that I work with that helped produce the audio version of the Bible. But so when the print version was POW, right? When we finished them, the project was in POW in my mind because the guys who need them gotta hear them. I tell the guys who need them gotta hear them, and so that's when I felt I needed to figure out a way to render it or to have it in audio, because the whole project of having to render or write the language down in Pidgin, there's no standard in how to express Pidgin. You go all over the place and you see when people have products, right? It's all in different. Right. There's no standard.
It's not a written language; it's a spoken language, and they're trying to put it into a written language.
Well, because there's no standard for right. So the University of Hawaii has a standard. It's called the ODO. That's the lady who developed this orthography. Orthography is another word for how to render a language, right? Okay. So it's Romanized. It's like English, right? It's Romanized. But we felt the University of Hawaii's way to render it, the Odo orthography, was just too out of reach. It was difficult for the normal lay local guy to read. So we said, you know what? We got to do them in such a way that it's not English, but it's Pidgin, but it's accessible, right? The word is accessible. We tried our best to make it where it's readable. But most of the people that we want to reach through this translation, not going to read them. They got to hear them. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So anyway, I reached out to this organization called Faith Comes by Hearing. And that's one of the verses in the Bible, that faith comes by hearing, so that hence the organization. So they go around working with languages that are similar to Hawaii Pidgin, where they have the audience where it's more of a, they need to hear it. So I reached out to this organization and they said, I said, hey, could we set up a project they said, okay, tell me about, the language, tell me about the speakers, all that. So we got into that discussion. Long story short, they said, shoots, we're going to do them. I said, all right, okay, tell me what's involved. Well, it's an 8-week project, right? 6 days a week, 6 days a week, morning to evening. And it's not a single voice recording. It's dynamics. It can be as many as 40 speakers. I think would be about 25 would be good. And I'm thinking that. And I said, okay, that's 8 weeks. We need that many people. And okay, how much does something like this cost? Well, about $50,000 or $60,000 because it's happening in Hawaii. We have to send sound engineers to tape it. And okay, I said, wow.
It's like, well, there's no sound engineers here that can do it.
Well, they are sent from that.
From that organization,
right? Because they know how to set it up. They have to send up the scripts and everything, right? I mean,
and they know to assign certain voices with certain characters throughout the Bible.
Well, but that was my part because as the project coordinator, I had to now go about doing a casting call.
Oh wow!
So a casting call. Well, first of all, it's like, wait. I couldn't go with the idea that's going to be $50,000-$60,000. I mean, who has that money? Me as a humble pastor guy. I mean, I got to take out a second mortgage for that or whatever. But anyway, the point is, was that I was just crying out, man, how, God, how this is going to happen? Because I know it cannot just be the print; it had to be the audio. So I talked to different people, and I met. The story is. And it's captured on my website, just the whole entire story if people are interested. And tell them in Pigeon anyway. But I met this guy, Bula Eastman. I heard that he uses them in his ministry, Free Inside Ministries. And so I met with him, and I was like excited because he was using it. He wanted to meet the head translator, the main translator, Joe Grimes. But Joe Grimes moved to the mainland. So he said, I couldn't meet him, but I meet you, Earl. So we're talking story about this. I shared with him about my vision of wanting to have this in audio and the challenges. And he brought his wife, Lynette Eastman, and she was there listening. And I said, yeah, I got to have him someplace, maybe my church, but my church is out in Mililani, Waiho. I don't know if people can drive there. I don't know if you can set them up for 8 weeks, right? Because I have to set up the whole sound place. I mean, people coming and going. Right. I think, can we do that? Anyway, she said, hey, we'll have them at my hotel. I said, what? Yeah, my hotel. I said, what do you mean your hotel? You own one hotel? And she said, no, I'm a general manager at the Surf Jack Hotel. And I think it can happen. I think we can make this happen. And my hotel, I said, what?
Where's the Surf Jack Hotel?
The Surf Jack Hotel is in smack dab in Waikiki.
I've never heard of that.
And this is all happening during COVID.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So nobody's using the hotel?
No, they are. And this is one of the hotels that remained open during that time. That was the thing, right?
Oh.
It's not. Some hotels are closed down. You can't have any activity. Well, she remained open, but again, not full capacity, which was amazing because you needed to find a suite large enough. And we had to find the biggest suite in their hotel, really. A 3-bedroom suite. One to house the sound engineers. There were a couple. One as a sound booth for the actual recording. And one room for we call them the proof listeners, the guys who would listen, right? And the sound engineers to see if they're reading correctly.
How is that for synchronicity, that all of that came together so perfectly for you guys? I
was blown away because $60,000, a big part of that was for the accommodations.
Yeah.
And, they're not going to the third world country in the woods, the backwoods, right? They're going to first world country. And not like, Louisiana, Bayou country. They're coming to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So that's why 60,000.
Such a hard project for them to.
Yeah, well, they suffered. They suffered for Jesus in Hawaii. But anyway, but the point is that was a huge part of the piece of making this happen. But again, the other part that was amazing was now we have to find the readers, the guys who'd be the voices,
right?
And it had to be guys who were. Fluent in Pidgin. You cannot just find somebody.
Yeah, the quote unquote native speakers.
Yeah, native speakers, exactly. And so that was a huge project. Casting call, and up to the last minute, like we didn't have all the people on the right seats on the bus. You know what I mean? There were people that were like main readers that we hadn't chosen yet. We hadn't picked. Never have them. But we said, we're going to trust God. We started, and even as the project was going, then people came out of work. We had some, they had to read scripts. We had to kind of vet them and everything else. They're saying, okay, you're good, but are you available for this amount of hours?
Yeah.
And not only that, and people, some of them ask, oh, what is the pay? And
it's like, you're getting into heaven. How about that?
yeah, right. So pretty much it was like, guys, none of the readers did it for compensation.
Right.
And the main people of the voices, right? You got the narrators of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You got Jesus. You got Paul. You got Peter. All those guys had to commit not only to do it for free, but to commit hours in the chair, in the audio recording chair, and that was amazing feat. And we have some pretty big name guys in the local industry, entertainers, talents that committed to this project.
Nice.
Yeah, and they also signed a waiver saying they won't get any recognition.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can name them all, but the fact that it's not like we're gonna, hey, this person played Jesus, this person played the narrator. They all did it. You'll recognize their voices,
right?
But it was
at the end of the day, you're narrating the Bible. So what recognition? Yeah, I can totally see. It's like, no, the recognition is God and Jesus. Like, the recognition is not you.
Exactly. And they all were, in fact,
that's awesome.
That was just a highlight because they all did it, for something beyond themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to be good human beings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that all worked out. I mean, amazing. God took care of the finances. He took care of the place. And obviously, I'm a pastor. I'm my boss gave me 8 weeks to focus on this.
So how much of that entire strenuous process do you attribute to your connection with God and Jesus? And making sure that everything lined up?
I would say I can't take any credit. It's all God because, I mean, all those hurdles, I didn't have the money. People gave. A lot of it was already like donated, right? In-kind gifts, like the hotel. That was just amazing gift. And people, when I went out, and I'm not a fundraiser, but I had to fundraise for, the food, the parking, all that. The Pahana party to throw that, after you're done, all that funds came in, and I was just blown away. And the quality of the recording is so good because the readers are so good. They are well-known voices in the community. And I'm blown away. Can I even just name some of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
I don't know, can you?
Yeah, I don't know. I just want Bula Eastman is the voice of Jesus, and you get Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew is Dave Lancaster. You know Dave Lancaster, he's a radio guy.
Yeah.
Booga Booga, and then the ending, he was put in. Dave Lancaster. Mark is me. I was Mark. Luke is Sam Kapu, and get Sam Kapu the third. And then John is Tony Silva. The brothers, Tony Silva.
Yeah.
And then Peter was a huge guy. Is Kaleo Pilanka. He's another local comedian, and he had these others. You had to play characters, right? So we had like Shannon Scott, the DJ Shannon Scott, Augie Tulba.
Augie T, he's been on the show.
He's been on, Augie was a part of it, and there were others. And I wish we could have had more Wahinis, but in the New Testament, the Wahini parts are so small. Right. So, but we had some Wahinis involved. But those are some of the main guys that turned out. And there are others too, like pastor types and everything else. But I mean, just the fact that these guys could use their voice talent to do this, and had a heart for God in the whole process, I was just blown away.
So where does someone find the audio version that they can listen to, this dynamic audio version?
Yes. So it's on, again, these social media platforms like, not social media, but digital Bible platforms like YouVersion, Bible Gateway, and Bible.is is Faith Comes by Hearing's website. But we tell people, go to the HawaiiPigeonBible.org website. Why? Because when you go and you listen to the audio there and watch, there is even a video of the book of Luke, the story about Jesus in Luke. That's on there, and we can track viewership.
Oh,
and
good.
that's why we have the YouTube. You know, we've put it on YouTube, so we can track. Hey, get this many viewers. So if you go to the other platforms to listen to, we don't know, we can't follow. So we always tell them, hey, go to the HawaiiPigeonBible.org website and watch them there. You know, it's so easy. You don't have to go through and figure out which language. You got to check which language and get so many steps.
Because they have all the languages there.
Exactly.
On those sites.
Exactly.
Okay.
Correct, Ioane. So that's why we tell them, go there and you can find out about the translation. You can find out where to buy the good and special book and everything else.
It's such an awesome project, and I'm so glad that everything lined up and came,
Yes.
right in line. Because I'm sure you did this, out of the goodness of your heart too. I mean, just projects like these. I sometimes ask my guests, "What is the mark that you want to leave on this planet before you leave?"
Yes.
It's like, do you feel like you've done that already, or do you feel like there's more in store for you?
Yeah. Well, when I said the audio is necessary, not power yet until we have the audio, right? And even today, I said not power yet because everybody in Hawaii got to hear this and trust Christ and come solid in Him. And toward that end, I am a president now. It's like, well, you've been president of what? Yeah, Hawaii Pigeon Bibles Ministries. Hawaii Pigeon Bibles Ministries, and that nonprofit was, established to Malamara translation, right? To take care of the translation, because really that after that guy passes, Joe Grimes, he's 93, he's retired officially now. I mean, after years, he finally retired. Who's going to take on the decision making on revisions, on reprinting, all that, and the royalties that come in, it's not coming into my pocket. None of the translators' pockets. We want those royalties to come back to the local entity, the Hawaii Pigeon Bible Ministries entity, so that we can use those monies to further the work that God started when the Grimes came in 1986 to further the work and the vision of reaching more locals for Jesus.
So where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I would hope in 10 years that I would be leading many other leaders or encouraging other leaders to have confidence in using the pigeon in all forms of church life. So the leaders would feel, I would be kind of like sitting back and seeing that the local leaders, the local church leaders that have a heart to really reach the local people would have confidence in saying, I can speak Pigeon. I can pray in Pigeon. I can preach in Pigeon. I can lead people to Jesus in Pigeon. I can help them come solid, right? You call them discipleship. Come solid in Jesus through Pigeon. And so in 10 years, if that is happening across the board, and then there is no, in fact, it's accepted and not stigmatized, in that, like, oh, we shouldn't use that because that's on rubbish language. Or
kind of wanted to touch on that too. Like, has there been negative stigma attached to this whole project and going forward with people saying that, oh, why are you translating into Pigeon?
Yeah, and so initially when the Grimes were doing this in the 80s, 90s, right? That's why I think they received the most criticism. I don't get that so much today.
Okay.
But there are people, they have comments, on our Facebook. It's like, yeah, I don't think the Pigeon, it doesn't see God in a very glorified way. It's too casual. Okay, that's some people's.
They know Jesus wore slippers, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's irreverent. People have all these comments, and I don't. I welcome those comments because I just know that there are people that are being reached. People are receiving the message. So to me, that's the proof in the pudding, right? When it's being accepted by the people you need them, not by the guys that can understand the word in standard English. Or if you want to read the King James Bible and that speaks to you, go read that.
Because the purpose of the Bible is to have these ideas understood by as many people as possible. It is not the purpose of the Bible for people to read perfect English.
Exactly, Ioane. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
People, stop. Like, just
that's
stop.
fine.
Stop hating on the Bible.
And that's
it
fine.
should be written in. I mean, it's written in how many languages? The Bible.
The Bible. I think there are. If I can stand to share some statistics. There are about 7,000 languages in the world. 1,500 or so have complete translations, and there are many that are, just New Testaments, and some not even completed. So Hawaii Pidgin is one of those that have the complete Genesis to Revelation, right?
Awesome.
The start to Jesus show. That's Revelation.
Because it's already been translated in Native Hawaiian, Olelo Hawaii.
Yes, Olelo Hawaii. Yes, it is. It is. And they just had one dedication a couple years ago because they added the Okina's kakos and everything else. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Baibila Hemolele. Baibala Hemolele. Yeah.
Is that what? Okay.
Yeah. The Hawaiian Bible, right?
I'm the worst Hawaiian. Sorry.
That's okay.
Going forward with Pigeon.
Yes.
And the advent of social media. And how do you think Pigeon or the spoken language here in Hawaii is going to change as social media has become such a predominant part of day-to-day life? Because I kind of see some of English getting deteriorated with texting and social media posting and stuff like that, Twitter. Like they're not even spelling out full-length English words anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see something like that either deteriorating Pigeon or aiding in Pigeon or not having an effect at all?
Yeah, I think that's a complicated question to answer. Language change happens all the time. And with the phenomena of social media, right, you can get it out there. And there's no one like censoring, right, your desire to express yourself. So it's out there. There are going to be many ways people are going to express themselves, and they're going to be creative in that way. But I don't think it'll detract or change because language is used in social context, in interaction. So yes, that whole social media is a real community, but the way people use the language in real life, that's to me is different, and I don't think that will be affected in how Hawaii Pidgin is used in daily life. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think it does. I think it's really good.
And so, just to follow up on that, in terms of in this digital age, in social media, one of the hopes I have is that there will be more people. We have many podcasts, many vlogs. Right now, people in COVID, and of course we're coming out of COVID, but they go online and watch so many Christian teachings. I hope that there will be more people doing Hawaii Pidgin messages. In fact, I'm hoping that there will be people that do Hawaii Pidgin music, where their lyrics in Pigeon. Well, we have 150 songs already, the Psalms. We don't call them Psalms. We call them the songs. 150 lyrics. I mean, yeah. Just got to put them to music.
I'm trying to think back. It's like, reggae music has kind of been like that. Hawaii reggae, where they kind of use some of the Pigeon.
Yeah. In any movement of God, you had music that went on with that.
So you're trying more of the Christian music.
It could be, or any kind of music. Yeah.
Okay.
They come on. They can use this and legitimize this as a means of usage, right? Because you have Hawaii music, right? You have English music. Why not have Hawaii Pidgin music?
Do your children speak Pigeon?
Not much, but they grew up enough to my daughter was one of the voices on the.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was good. But again, they're not. That's not their first language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, do you still see that? I kind of see it too, because being a police officer in Kalihi for 9 years, a huge immigrant population.
Yes.
From the Philippines, Micronesia,
yes,
Korea, Vietnam, and you're having all these different immigrant families and cultures coming together and blending in together. So I did see an extension of Pigeon to a certain extent from there.
Yes. And
It didn't sound like Hawaii Pigeon necessarily.
yes. And see, so you have that phenomenon, right? And so, you ask if my kids can speak Pigeon. I think if people want to be successful in connecting or communicating in Hawaii, you got to be able to, we call it code switch. You got to not only understand, but it would be helpful if you can communicate and not feel any shame about communicating and not speaking in a way that you're condescendingly speaking, but speak in such a way you're connecting with that person. So you go to a place where they're only talking Pigeon. You want to connect. You're going to use Pigeon. So to me, that's powerful. And then, of course, there's settings where you have to speak standard English because they're speaking in standard English. So you got to do that. But if you can do both, and I think you'll be effective in whatever you do as a police officer, as a pastor, in any kind of work situation or social situation that you can make those connections.
Yeah, because I want to say is like sometimes talking to some of these first generation or even second generation families, if you speak regular English to them, they don't understand. But once you use like, a Filipino family, you're talking with a Filipino accent to them. Yeah. They understand you immediately. It's like,
and I find myself speaking like that because I'm from Waipahu, so I do that and I'm thinking, why am I'm not making fun. I'm just trying to accommodate,
But then they totally understand you.
And then they feel closer to you, I don't know.
Ate, over here.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I do that. I mean, just kind of naturally because she's, you grew up in these contexts. Yeah.
You could be a Pigeon translator for law enforcement, EMS, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that. Hey, do we have a Pigeon speaker?
I think the good ones probably do it unconsciously. They do it and do it well.
They do, and they learn to do that.
Yes.
It's funny when you have, because we're having an influx of actually mainland applicants coming to Oahu specifically to be police officers here. So it's changing the dynamic of who is coming into the department because you're seeing more and more mainlanders coming here to be police officers.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be good if the department considers the means in which you communicate, because I think that's huge in the acceptance, right, of that person coming in authority, right?
Yeah. Huge, especially for law enforcement, because if you're not communicating correctly or properly or listening correctly or properly, the whole situation can blow up.
Exactly.
And that's not what you want. You want the situation to dissolve and hopefully resolve itself.
Yeah. The whole trend now is de-escalation, right?
De-escalation.
Yeah, I saw that in 60 Minutes this past week on the Austin Police Department having changing the way they train their police force.
Oh, no, I would definitely use a lot of those techniques. And when I was training officers, it's like, hey, sometimes you go to these scenes and regardless of how the person is talking or the culture that they come from, when you get there, number one, you're getting there at like the worst part of this person's day, probably the worst part of their lives, because something terrible has happened or is happening or is going to happen. And sometimes they need just someone to vent to and talk to. So when you get on scene and this guy is just screaming and hollering, yelling at you, he's not yelling at you personally.
Yes.
He may be yelling at the uniform, the badge or whatever, but your job is to sometimes be that quote unquote verbal punching bag to let people just vent off at you for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then they just kind of, they let it all out and they see that you didn't react negatively towards them. And maybe you're quote unquote on their side.
So I respect those police officers that are affected because they're doing social work, mental health assessment. They're doing all those kind of things to de-escalate the situation so that it doesn't, blow up where they have to use force, right? Huge.
There's a lot of teachings of that in that book.
Sure.
All right. As we wind down here, do you have anything else for the audience?
I would say, go check out the audio. Go check out the video of Luke. And if it speaks to you, just think about how many people that's going to appreciate it. Have them listen to it. The best thing probably you can do is to have people listen to the message and just you don't need to preach anything. Just have them listen to something that will speak. And I think that would be beautiful. That's what was done. And I hope people will go out and spread it. just like Jesus
Yeah.
intended to.
Earl, I want to thank you so much for coming on Hawaii Real. This has been really fun. I hope you had a great time.
This was good fun. Thank you. Mahalo, bro. Mahalo plenty, Ione, for this chance for talk story with you.
So it's funny because I always look for guests that are really good speakers and talkers because
Right.
it's a podcast. And it's like, well, I got to have someone that can talk.
Right.
And you are bringing not just like your good fluent English, but your Pigeon English too. It's like, yeah.
Shoot. That's good. Ione. All right, man.
All right. It's been great. And this is the 100th episode. Everybody, I want to thank you again for watching and staying tuned. So as always, stay happy, Hawaii.
Malama pono.
Right on.